Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to this ongoing series, Artist Talk, presented by the Steps Beyond Foundation. I'm Allen Maniker, Foundation Board Chair, and I'll be your host and moderator. This series continues to present an exciting lineup of dance artists who will be sharing their stories and insights with you. They range from across the dance spectrum. The full lineup and information can be found at stepsbeyond, that's one word, .org. There is also a place there to make a suggested donation, should you be so inclined, which we do hope you will be. Please note that you can enter your comments and questions in the chat, and we'll make every effort to answer all questions asked. And if you'd like to let us know where in the world you're located and listening in from, we would love to know. Now, let me share my screen here for a moment. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this panel discussion, Table of Silence, an artistic reflection on 9/11. The Table of Silence Project 9/11 is a multicultural performance ritual for peace and healing, a ceremony for over 100 dancers and musicians. It was first presented on the 10th anniversary of 9/11 and is presented each year at the Fountain at Lincoln Center here in New York City. This year will mark the 20th anniversary of that tragic day, 9/11. This work has evolved over time, and the revised program, premiered in 2020, not only paid tribute to those who lost their lives on 9/11, but honored all those who are impacted by the current crises that face humanity today, from the pandemic to the Black Lives Matter movement for racial justice. Today, I'll be speaking with Jacqulyn Buglisi, the choreographer, Daniel Bernard Roumain, the composer and violinist, and Terese Capucilli, principal dancer, as they share insights about this unique collaboration and the evolution of the work. In her 4 decades-long career, Jacqulyn Buglisi has created more than 100 ballets for Buglisi Dance Theatre, as well as for the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theatre, the Richmond Ballet, Ananda Shankar Performing Arts Company in India, the Shanghai Song and Dance Ensemble in China, the Martha Graham Dance Company, the North Carolina Dance Theatre, the Joyce Trissler Dance Company, Teatro Danza Contemporanea di Roma, for which she was a co-founder in 1969, American Repertory Ballet, Ailey II, and Ice Theatre of New York, to mention just a few. She was a principal dancer with the Martha Graham Dance Company for 12 years. A master teacher committed to arts and education, she has been the chairperson of the Modern Department at the Ailey School for 25 years, served on the faculty of the Juilliard School, the Martha Graham School, and guest teaches at the famed Performing Arts High School, of which she is an alumna, Steps on Broadway, and Perry Dance Capizio Center. For her contribution in uniting the dance community through the Table of Silence, Buglisi was named, quote, a New Yorker for Dance by Dance New York City, and received proclamations from former Governor Andrew Cuomo and Mayor Bill de Blasio. Known for his signature violin sounds infused with myriad electronic, urban, and African-American music influences, Daniel Bernard Roumain takes his genre-bending music beyond the proscenium. He is a composer of chamber, orchestral, and operatic works. He has been nominated for a Sports Emmy for Outstanding Musical Composition for his collaboration with ESPN, featured as keynote performer at technology conferences, and created large-scale, site-specific musical events for public spaces. Daniel earned his doctorate in music composition from the University of Michigan and is currently Institute Professor and Professor of Practice at Arizona State University. An avid arts industry leader, he serves on the board of directors of the League of American Orchestras, Association of Performing Arts Presenters, and Creative Capital, the advisor committee of the Sphinx Organization, and was co-chair of 2015 and 2016 APAC conferences. Therese Capucilli was born in Syracuse, New York, and is acclaimed for her work with Martha Graham Dance Company and her interpretation of the classic roles originally performed by Graham. She was partnered by Rudolf Nureyev and Mikhail Baryshnikov in Graham Works, shared the stage with Kathleen Turner and Claire Bloom, and had roles created for her by Twyla Tharp and Robert Wilson. She was a principal dancer with the Graham Company from 1979 to 2005, associate artistic director from 2000 to 2002, and artistic director from 2002 to 2005. She is now artistic director laureate. She is an associate founder and principal dancer of Buglisi Dance Theatre. Ms. Capucilli is a 3-time award recipient from the Princess Grace Foundation USA. She now serves on the Princess Grace Foundation's Arts Advisory Board. She received a BFA in dance from Purchase College, and she has been on the faculty at Juilliard since 1999. So please join me in welcoming Jacqueline, Therese, and Daniel. Hello, folks.
Hello.
Thank you all so much for joining us tonight for really a monumental work that you've all had such an important part in putting together for a commemoration of such a terrible time, right? And I actually think I'm going to start with Jackie and ask Jackie, what was the first impetus for the Table of Silence when you presented it in 2011, the 10th anniversary?
Well, actually, it started out as we were asked to write a proposal to the Times Square Alliance for the 10th anniversary of 9/11. And fortunately, that didn't happen. And from there, it had it's quite a story. You know, I've been drawing Labyrinth for years. I guess I don't know when I started drawing Labyrinths, but you walk a piece Labyrinth, and it brings balance and harmony into your centering, focusing deep within to be able to then, you know, I think like opening your hands and be able to receive the energies that are right in front of you, right? So I do that kind of practice, and I think it came about almost organically. I was then commissioned to go to Italy to be a judge. And while I was there, I also got asked to come up to Teatro Carcano. I was in southern Italy, to Milano. And so I was in Milano, and my costumer, Cristina Giannini, had been after me that if I go back to Italy, I must contact this woman, Rosella Vasta. And so while I was there, I called to make an appointment to see Rosella, and she was very excited. She was in Perugia. I took a train down to Perugia, and the two of us met, and we were immediately connected. I saw her incredible plates that she makes. They were symbols of peace. I'll show you one here. They're very, very big and grand. And then I don't know if you can see in them, there are designs, probably not really.
Can't really, Jacqueline. Can't really, yeah. But it is a beautiful plate. And by the way, what language did you converse in? English or Italian?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. And we just decided, you know, I showed her my requiem, and she showed me her work with 100 plates that she was doing for peace in the world. And it just was one of those things that happens where came back to New York and started right away in on this idea that I wanted to see if there was some way, some space, the proper place where I could create a peace labyrinth. And that came right away. It was Lincoln Center, because it has a circular sphere, it has a water fountain, it has a mandala in the architectural structure, and so on and so forth. And, it was only a short time after that that I contacted Rosella with this idea that maybe somehow I could incorporate the her beautiful symbol. And so then Christina Giannini came into play, and we created what a priest wears as a robe, which is a surplice or a mantle, sometimes called. And she created a pocket in the back of the robe. And so the dancers actually, when they start the piece, they're wearing the pocket in the back with the plate inside of it, the symbol inside of it. And then during the ceremony, they take it out and create a whole dance. But I just wanted to say that it was a lot of collaboration to have this idea realized. How to make it manifest. I needed at least to have 100 or 128 dancers. I had a lot of people to contact, because when you can't just walk up to Lincoln Center and say, "Can I dance outside?" the answer is no. So I don't know. I had a lot of wonderful friends, and so I called. How could I get to Lincoln Center? I called Kevin McKenzie and asked him, who do you talk to at Lincoln Center?
Let me just interject for those that might not know. Kevin McKenzie is the artistic director of American Ballet Theatre. Yeah.
And I got Terry involved immediately. And she had to come with me to Lincoln Center to meet Carrie Madden, because Kevin said Carrie Madden, who was then vice president and knew all operations that took place on the plaza, he knew if it would be possible for me to create a labyrinth on the Josie Robertson Plaza around the Redstone Fountain. And from there, I met Fausto Bizziri, who then created the plates all in this, smaller, mini, you could carry them. And I met a great Italian shirt designer, Alessandro Giraldi. And these people, like in a matter of days, had the stuff that we needed to create this labyrinth with 128 dancers, all dressed and with their symbols. And they shipped everything from Italy in 8 days.
Wow, wonderful. Let's, shall we take, so for those of you that haven't had the opportunity to see this really magnificent work, I'll let it speak for itself, but this is just a little taste, so I'll show it to you now. So a little taste for everybody watching that hasn't had the chance. And Jackie, I believe you stream it live on the morning of 9/11, don't you?
Yes, we've been doing that every year. And when we first started to do this in 2011, nobody really was doing live stream of big performances. Very, very few people had caught up to that. So when I also first conceived this, I kept saying, the only way we can make this work, our message of peace from the artist of America out to the world, is we have to, from this little place, we've got to beam it out, and there must be some way that we can send our message, around the world. And
Daniel, when did you become involved with the project?
Well, as a composer, I would say it was decades ago, in that my first day in New York City was January 1st, 1997. I left JFK Airport for 63rd Street and First Avenue, and I made the sign of the cross. 63rd and First Avenue, if my memory serves me correctly, was the townhouse of the Martha Graham Dance Company. And it was iconic to me. It was a sacred space, still is, by the way. Doesn't matter what's there now. And I walked in. I happened upon a class that was being taught by Prologue. And I think Jackie and Therese were in the building, I think. And if they weren't, I soon found them, or, I would go and watch classes. I wasn't playing.
Well, Daniel, was the building vibrating? If the building was vibrating, that means Jackie and Therese were in the building.
That's a good point. Yeah. But it was. I'm saying it this way, not to be mercurial, but I'm saying that it was the first time I had seen a Graham class taught in New York City in that space by that teacher, Miss Lang, who I consider a mentor, alongside Miss Buglisi and Miss Capucilli. As a musician, a dancer's rhythm, even the clip that you just played, Alan, the reverberation, the energy, it's very musical. I mean, the drum is punctuation. But I'm saying this to you because that's when those lessons of reverberation, energy, heat, vibration, synergy, that's when those lessons were taught. And I think they manifest last year when I was invited by Jackie and Therese to be a more formal part of the piece, play the violin, compose some music, underscore the great words of Mark Bamuti Joseph, who's not with us tonight, our librettist, co-librettist. So the formal invitation came last year and has been extended, of course, this year. But I had also seen the piece as an audience member. In fact, I was probably in that audience because, the piece is, I shouldn't say a sensation, that's not the right word. The piece has a very important prominence and relationship to the city. It's a day of reflection, meditation, peacemaking, reverence and reverence. All the things that I think the best artists do. And of course, the work of Jackie and Therese, well, they are iconic, and they're iconic because the work that they do, not only this piece, that's important to point out, the work that they do has depth and resonance.
Well, were you always intended to play as well as compose, or did that sort of evolve?
That's probably a question for Jackie, actually, but my understanding is that there were a couple things. There were protocols last year, firmly in place. Matter of fact, this was one of the first live performances post those pandemic protocols, if memory serves me correctly. So number one. So the playing of the violin became a way of connecting the experience for the dancers on the Lincoln Center campus with the experience of even tonight's audience online. So that was one function of the violin. Another function of the violin was to serve as a kind of call, right? I do not to call anybody out, but Jackie had a wonderful relationship, or actually knew Jimi Hendrix. And I have for years done a version of our national anthem on my 6-string electric violin, kind of recalling that master, right? And then the notion of words and setting of those words meant that the score had to go beyond the violin, and I created a score that involved piano and strings and drums, all the things that a dancer needs, especially that many dancers, again, to not only set Mark's words, but to have that that as a kind of a interlocutor between the online experience and the experience that was happening on campus. And I'm proud to say, I'm sure you'll mention it, the piece was featured in the New York Times for all of these reasons. And I think it's an important, as I'm 50 years old, actually I've known Jackie and Teresa half my life, right? That's one way to frame it. And as we grow older, it becomes a challenge to create work that not only connects, but has prominence and resonance. And I'm so fortunate to be a very small part of what has become a kind of an annual event. That's hard to do in New York City. That is one of not only sorrow, but of a kind of righteous celebration of life, an affirmation of life. What is the role and responsibility of the living in a time of death? An affirmation, and I would say a celebration of life.
Beautiful. So, Therese, when did you become involved in all of this?
I laugh. Really, I've been involved since that very first seedling of a thought as it came from Jackie's lips to my ears. Talk about common table. Jackie and I have that kind of common table where we can go to each other for anything. And I think that from the inception of Table of Silence, I was involved in its development, and I consider myself an artistic sounding board for Jacqueline, a place where she can really brew on ideas and help her to realize these ideas. Artists, as visionaries as I see her, they need a safe place to be able to stir the pot, to understand where they want to go with something. And I believe I've always been that safe place for her, to follow through with ideas and a kind of a plethora of iterations in order to bring something meaningful and of necessity to fruition. And so many people said this was not possible to do. And we have jumped over many, many obstacles. Just the thought of gathering over 100 dancers that first year in order to realize the concentric circles. And that group has grown in 2019 to 180 dancers. It was daunting logistically. So, you're not only dealing with a very ritualistic sense of trying to move choreographically for Jacqueline into a place where it really resonates, but you're also dealing with these huge logistics that are so difficult to find space to accommodate that many artists, the community of artists, to find artists that have a common sense in their heart of wanting to do this, and gathering quite a diversity of artists, all different ages. And then just, really allowing for that dream, right, of hope, of peace, of the need for community, unity, defining the journey always. And I mean always going back to why we're doing it. This continues to be our fuel. We've consistently jumped through many, many hoops and continue year after year to break through tremendous obstacles. They present a lot of risks, as we saw in 2020 during the pandemic. But I will say that we are able to succeed, and I mean this wholeheartedly, on this quest, because Jackie is so steadfast in her vision of why it's important to do this, and it's unwavering. She is able to gather, because of the way that she talks to the individual and allows the individual to be a part of it, to say why they want to be a part of this, and to know their importance in speaking those truths as well. We have a very committed, beautiful group year after year of artists that from 15 to 75 that work. So I think, my relationship with Jackie is one of a dear friend, but also a lot of it stemmed from the work that we did together, coming out of the Graham Company, and how I could to be an artist of my caliber and being able to trust someone after Martha's death to choreograph for me, it is such a gift. There's nothing that can replace that kind of cherished common ground, which was, the beautiful physical language that we both speak in our bodies. It's this kind of sharing is so important, and the theatrical sensibility, of course, that Martha's work taught us.
I just want to point out for people that the picture on the screen right now, Therese is right in the front and center there. So I wanted to be sure that everyone got a look at that. I'm curious though, but Therese, first of all, there's bell ringing in this that you do a good deal of us. Is that set or is it improvised?
Each ring of the bell is set choreographically, but it's not so much about where it is, but how from one ring, the timing from one bell to the other that clearly threads the work and binds the dancers in a collective voice. And to me, that's the most important part of it. So if I feel the need that the dancers, I'm listening to the dancers, I'm watching the dancers, I'm watching the artists, the vocalists, the drummers, and I feel I need to give them an extra bell, I might, but it is all choreographically and timed out, which is a big responsibility on my part, to make sure that the arms are raised when that first plane crashed at 8:46. So everything rhythmically, needs to be, I have to sensitize to the movement on the plaza, and ground myself in a way, a very deep way, in the hope of guiding them and creating this kind of listening sensation as a group. Oh, my bell just rang. Did you hear it? On the plaza. That helps. It should feel to me and to the people around that there is this tug of the earth, on each as beneath their feet, that this connectivity to each other. And I feel a great responsibility as the bellmaster to make sure that I am.
So Jackie, let me go back to you then. Jackie, are you able to take your director, choreographer hat off during the performance and actually feel that huge impact that the audience is feeling, or are you still too involved of the logistics of what's going on? Because I can't, having seen this piece live and having seen it streamed, I can't convey enough to the people listening just how impactful this piece is and how completely appropriate it is to commemorate and to honor that day. So can you feel that, or are you just totally involved in the logistics and being the director?
I'm immersed before I'm immersed. I'm immersed the moment I open my eyes in that. Before I come at 5 o'clock in the morning, it's, for me, it's not separate what I'm doing and my life. I feel totally dedicated to speaking through my work, through art, about the issues and emotions and crises and situations that we find ourselves in humanity, in expressing what makes us human, and in trying to send a message through this miraculous body. This human life is a miracle. And first thing I always say to dancers is, what are you? And there's always a huge silence, as if it's a mystery, none can imagine. And then I say, well, what is life? Life is a miracle, therefore you are. It suddenly lifts the consciousness. So, you're in a certain state of consciousness. The moment that the dancers step onto the plaza, I step with them. I am with them. And we step into this temple, this cathedral. We deem it sacred space. Wherever the dancer puts their foot, we deem it sacred space. And I think there is no separation at a certain point in your life. It's like I say, peace is a work in progress.
Right.
It's never ending with yourself, your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your community, the world. And we as artists have a great responsibility in times of crisis and trouble to come out, to express for them what they cannot express for themselves. And that was so needed in terms of healing, in terms of things like reciprocity, in terms of, especially like Black Lives Matter movement, that we just experienced. I'm part of the living through the 60s. It's never, ever ending. And I can only say that I'm with them.
Jackie, thank you for that. But I want to ask a technical question though, because I know that there are a set of 12 movements that are repeated in the piece. How did this evolve, and is there a significance to the number 12?
Yeah, well, 12 is a number of completion. I use a lot of sacred geometry reference, really in layering my work as rather scaffolded. And 12 is eternal, 12 is completion, 12 is a journey. And so, just like a rosary has, you do a certain number of prayers, certain number of times all around on the rosary. In many, many different forms of practice, sacred practices, we do things like that. So for me, 12, it was 12 seconds before the second tower fell. There's a lot of different synchronicities that are going on too in what happened that day and why we do what we do, the way we do it on the plaza, and why the repetitions are a certain number of the symphony is the amplification of the human heart, the heartbeat. We use that beat and the rhythm of the heartbeat, which goes all the way back to mythic times, ancient times, when the people separated the grain and they started already with a rhythm and they would dance in the fields. We are bringing it back, that when we all together come together, we create this sense of, for me, we are all connected through the oxygen on our planet. And the things that we share, the commonalities, bring us together. We are all connected. And
I love hearing that, because I just want to tell you, so in medical school, we were told that the heart beats in 3/4 time. So that's always stuck with me. I think I might have known that.
And the gestures, the gestures are this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each one stepping on a 9, 10, 1. And you're stepping on each beat, but they're changing, and very interesting. But, a lot of times, and I think Daniel say so, or Therese, it's the same kind of thing when you're doing and you're inside this, I have to say there's a sense of the divine. It's a divine moment, and you humble yourself to that. And it is very humbling. You don't know exactly why you do something. It's ineffable. It's the poets. It's the truth. The artists tell us the truth. That's what Jimi Hendrix said. He tells the truth. James Baldwin, the truth. Why did they leave America? They were enraged, and that's why we have to do the Table of Silence project, and so the reimagining was absolutely a necessity. And I called Daniel and I said, I had this thing that's on my mind always. I would say to Therese, I would love for Daniel to do the Jimi Hendrix Star Spangled Banner on the violin, because he was doing it. And I wanted him to do it, particularly last year, because it connected it, the threads that bind us, were so necessary. And
I mean, I want to
Daniel can
talk.
speak to that, because he said yes right away. And then of course we wanted to do The Lost and also My Country.
Wow. Have you ever thought about performing it at Ground Zero? Does it belong at Ground Zero or no? That's for anyone.
Yes, we've had many discussions. They really wanted us to perform down there, site specific. We've gone down there a number of times, but unfortunately the pandemic really got in the way these last couple years. But yes, the discussion has been, it really was flourishing, and a lot of ideas were coming about, whether or not to do it indoors or outdoors, or how to do it even during the pandemic. But then the museum lost 60% of their staff during the pandemic. So it became very difficult to make that happen. But the hope is that, yes, it would be wonderful to revisit that now that we are moving forward.
But my understanding is that you have performed it elsewhere, correct?
Yes, actually, we went to my hometown and up at Syracuse University, the Lockerbie, they have a memorial there from the Pan Am Flight 103 Remembrance Wall. And a colleague of mine from Purchase had a dance studio. We gathered many dancers, young dancers, and they were so beautiful. And Jackie reminded me we were rehearsing in a cafeteria,
We rehearsed in the cafeteria.
And it was raining, and we went out in the rain and we did it anyway. It was phenomenal, but also it was taken to in the fall of 2011, right, Jacqueline, to the Piazza San Rufino in Assisi, Italy.
It's been done for the Day of Peace between Assisi and Perugia. It's been done also in Santa Barbara University, for the terror acts that happened there. And, it's been done also in several places where, we've been able to kind of, we did it for that thing downtown, for the human trafficking, just, also many different subjects.
Right.
And each was amazing. Sorry.
Daniel, did you go with?
Did you go? No, Virginia Mestan came with me. And also Paula Janine Bennett, who created also the some of the music and some of the score for the end of the full-length work. Right.
So I'm curious to hear, is the response of the audience different in internet, and is an international audience response different than the American audience?
People are people. People are people. I think, each space has its own beauty and its own rhythm. And, the way that Jacqueline works to embrace the architecture and the energy of a space and its community of participants, it's always different. It builds a collective voice that's uniquely its own. And that's the beauty of it. Santa Barbara was amongst, palm trees and sand, and I marveled at how beautiful. I was not there. I watched it on a video, and I was marveling at how beautiful it was, even with less dancers. So each progressive year of performance at Lincoln Center, it resonates uniquely in its own place and time, as we saw when Jacqueline brought Daniel last year. Now you have to realize, in terms of a little bit of history with Daniel worked with us in Suspended Women, and I will never forget dancing to his violin in that work. It was an incredible time. It was an incredible creative time at Juilliard. And every year, I swear, we've been doing a Table of Silence. It started in a very simplistic way. with just the big drum and the bell. That's all we had, and an idea of vocalists. And every year Jacqueline is talking about Daniel, right? We got to get Daniel in here. We got to get Daniel's always busy, Daniel. But Jacqueline has never forgotten Daniel, and I have never forgotten him. We all carry each other so deeply in our hearts, really. And finally, 2020 happened, the pandemic happened, and here we were, and it became the divine moment, and Daniel became involved at this time. But Daniel had always been in Jacqueline's right here throughout. She had wanted to involve him. And year after year, it progressed to more vocalists, more dancers, different kinds of instruments. It started with just the conch shell with John Ragusa. Then it became, we had the trumpet with Pam. And so it
loudest,
loudest, right.
So the music was evolving.
It was evolving, and particularly
continue to evolve. It's always evolving.
Yeah, so that's a perfect intro to, let's watch a little video of the piece that you call now the Prologue. Yeah,
the reimagining of Table of Silence for last year.
Fall back, falling, full on till heart fills, and again, time tide taut as the turbulence of tumult in a tortured mind, thunder clapping clave for death while life, patterns of paradise lost, and earth turned in on itself, a core of nuclear frost, frothing the universe turned rabid dog, old conversations spoken in music, digitized analog, contradictions and metafictions, metatexted, manifested, medunitaire, diseased, infested, an epidemic of intellect, snapping, Norland's taking over, insurgent like Basquiat, tagging Bush's yacht on a video shoot for Hova. Oh, this thing, like a birthplace of jazz, out of chaos comes the breath upon which love floats. Out of chaos comes the breath upon which love floats. Love floats. Be water, cycles to break. No more lying, much less flying. Call your grandma, practice faith. Psychically cycling, we got patterns to shake, music to make, culture to love, guilt to feel, prayers to say, and again, the house where my fear lives is haunted by race. and again of origins, seraphim, moss, blood memory, 12 hymns, mandala of Mandelian grace, sacred space. I remake the house where only hope lives, build it in a brick, light as the new day, and again, I am awakening. I am awakening. Awakening.
Wow, wonderful. I
Mhm.
hope that I'm able to go through that, come through, because Daniel, the playing is just so exquisite and accompanied with the words, yet at the same time, very different, right, from the original concept. Daniel, were you cognizant of the fact that this needed to be different?
Oh, I don't know if that's the word I would use, but I understand what you're saying. I know it needed to be integrated. I know it needed to have deep imagination. I know it needed to have integrity, innovation even. We had to figure things out. It's so astounding to me that I haven't really sat down with the video for some reason, but that editing, the sound, at least to my ear, sounds very balanced and unified. And it's actually not. I mean, there's multiple things going on. There's pre-recorded tracks. The violin is live. There's a lot going on, actually. A lot of it's very complicated, but and by the way, yeah, I think it's important to mention that our beloved crew, all the people that are behind the scenes, some of them, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Jackie and Therese, some of them worked for the Metropolitan Opera. It's just behind us there. They were on crew there, wanting to work at that time, lest we forget. So we had a wonderful cast, total cast.
Yeah, Nell Shelby was amazing. She's
Yeah.
with us all along.
Yeah.
So as you're playing that, Daniel, where does your head go?
Oh, I'm responding always, 100%, every second, every moment to the dancers. That music doesn't happen without their choreography, their energy, matter of fact, that's why I'm so because I don't remember. I can't do that without it's always been the case for me, at least. I'm entirely the music in the best sense, I think, whether it's a class or a performance, it is emanating from and the result of a connection to the dancers. So there's that one moment where I went, a very fast, I'm forgetting my own word. Oh, tremolo, because the dancers, did something.
Running.
So they're running, so I'm responding to them. There's an African-American dancer who we couldn't really see, who was at one point, I'm with them. I'm not a dancer, but the music is, right? So I'm always with them. And of course we have Mark's words and we have this underscore. But what I'm doing live is in direct relationship to the dancers. And I would say to any musician, that's the very least you could do. It's more complicated than that, but that's what you're hearing. That's what I'm trying to do, at least.
And as a performer, I mean, to be with Daniel on the plaza, we had a couple moments where I would run around him, and just to feel that energy is it just fills me up. It's just an amazing artist. Thank you, Daniel.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean,
the whole thing
work with you
creates
and Jackie.
an awakening. It's an awakening. We're talking about something that's happening now. I feel like in the earth, we're at war with our beautiful planet, and we need to take care. And so that, we're peace warriors for all of these issues, and those dancers, without those dancers, there is nothing happening.
Right. How did you come to the work of Mark Bamuthi Joseph? Did you know his work previously? And was what we heard in this piece, was this composed specifically for the piece? The spoken word. Yeah,
well, I listened a lot to Ta-Nehisi Coates. I know Mark was doing something with him.
Yep.
I also another good friend is Paula Prestini, and so Daniel and Mark were in an interview with Paula, and
We saw that.
Yeah. Oh, and Helga Davis, probably.
And Helga.
Yeah.
The great
Right.
Helga Davis, right?
And so Therese and I called up Therese and I said, Therese, Daniel's going to be on with Paula. Paula, let's try to go and do it. Which we both jumped on and saw that interview.
Yeah.
And right then and there, I knew it was like the two of you were like perfect chemistry. Like when I
Well,
thought of
yeah.
this, that
So
had
he-
to have spoken word.
So his spoken word was made specifically for this piece.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
it's an original libretto. I've been working with Mark for over 10 years. Sometimes the best collaborators are your best friends. And sometimes things just happen because they're supposed to. So, this year, Mark will be with us live and in person because, again, the COVID protocols, we just couldn't have Mark live in the circle, on the table, if you will. But Mark will be with us live. I'll be live. Of course, everything will be live and alive. But yes, Mark wrote something, working very closely, as Jackie always does. I just want to point this out. The moment you just played, for example, that that was a change. Things happened in the space.
Yeah.
So Jackie has a acute and profound directorial eye. So that was a thing where, boom, I'm creating sound to help the dance. So that's a change. And that's what's so great about, let's say, live, not only performance, but live process, right? What I'm discovering after I come out of my own cultural hibernation is that to work with, we're not going to be around forever, Alan, right? We're just not. And so
Really?
right.
No.
Well, to Pat and to Janice and Carol, thank you, Carol, the great Diane Roumain, to other people who are putting comments up in the chat. It's important to ask questions. Thank you for being here tonight. Alan, thank you for bringing us together. My young son is downstairs. He's always listening, always listening. It's important that these kind of convenings happen because, the process of creating work that will live on and be cataloged, that's kind of a cultural documentation. That's very important. I'm so glad that you've put so much effort into tonight. It's so clear to me. And you've picked really good spots that show and demonstrate when you have an acute directorial eye, when you have someone so profound in their movement and their choreography as Terese, when you have an okay musician and a really first-rate librettist, and all the dancers, all the accoutrement, if you will, of the space, that's when something special happens. And I would say even more than that, that's when necessary, vital art is expressed.
Well, and talk about necessary. You have to also realize that we did rehearsals on Zoom for this performance. And it was the first time that anyone was allowed on Lincoln Center Plaza to perform last year, since the pandemic had begun. So we went through, like I said, a lot of obstacles with the COVID protocols, very, very carefully to keep everyone safe. We dressed outside, and we had many less. How many
Our dressing room was Barclay Grove,
and the Grove.
Trees to the right of the Met.
Wow.
And we,
So
each
listen, but
dancer
there's
had a tree.
But there's currently that installation at Lincoln Center. Will that be gone by the time 9/11 rolls around?
Yes.
The grass
The
kind of
green.
the
Yeah.
green will be gone.
Yes, they
A lot
plan
of
to bring that down. They're planning to bring that down around the 8th, 9th. We'll have only one rehearsal on the plaza on the 10th. And then we usually have a little bit more, but we'll be fine. And
But
Jacqueline
so,
also added some dancers
We'll
to
be
the
the edge.
Prologue
We're on
this
the
year.
edge.
right. So clearly 2020 was a large evolution in the piece. Will there be more evolution from 2020 to 2021?
Sure. I mean, it has truly changed, and it changes wherever it goes. We were rained out outside in Perugia, and there was a mass ending in this huge cathedral right in the center of Perugia, and St. Lorenzo's Church. And so we went inside St. Lorenzo's Church, and there was a huge, beautiful mandala. Of course, at the back of the church is fantastic design. And everybody just immediately was able to join in the pattern there with 3 concentric circles. And when the priest finished the Mass, he turned to the congregation and he said, there's this ritual performance for peace in the back of the church. And the people turned, and I thought they're probably all going to leave because, after you've been in Mass for a while, you probably have to get home and so forth and get to your children. They stayed and they watched. I'll never forget a couple of these older people coming and going, where did you come from? What are you doing? They were just like mesmerized, as if they had seen some kind of supernatural vision that they hadn't expected to see from these young people performing the work.
Wow.
At the back
So,
of the church.
Believe it or not, our time is actually coming to a close. So I want to leave with what I think might require some kind of thinking answer, because the world has evolved in the 10 years you've been doing this. Has the world come closer to the message that you wanted to convey in the piece, or has it moved farther away? That's for all of you.
It's a great question. It's a great question. Tough question.
It is a tough question.
I'll go first in brief, if that's okay. I think it depends on who you're talking about in the world. I'm a Black Haitian American person. My son is biracial. I have friends who are transgender, non-binary conforming. I think it depends where you are in the world. Right now, I can't imagine what's happening in Afghanistan, in Haiti, right at this hour, in our emergency room. Someone's taking their last breath. I don't know if the world has evolved for a young woman in Afghanistan who, by the way, has watched this piece and would give their life to be in it. That's how we're connected, right? I don't know if the world has evolved for her. And in so many ways, I think this piece speaks for her. What more can we do? So I want to be honest. It's important for me to be honest and vulnerable. So for me, I think that the world has the potential to evolve into a shared radical morality, but we are not there yet, in my opinion.
Therese?
Well, I'm just thinking about, yes, all of those things are so important to know, but also when we think about the last year and a half, how incredible the artists have stepped forward and what gifts they have given to the world. So if nothing more, to those who might have thought that artists didn't matter in the world, I think the pandemic proved quite the contrary. It was just phenomenal, the embrace of so many in the world in so many different ways.
I mean,
with artists doing it.
Not to sort of put it in my own context, which I don't know, I hope it doesn't sound trite. At the time of 9/11, The Producers was the hottest show on Broadway. It was impossible to get tickets. 9/11 happened, and on that Friday, I had tickets to The Producers. And we weren't sure whether or not it was going to play. We weren't sure whether or not we would want to feel like we wanted to go, but we went. And at the end, everybody stood up and sang "God Bless America." And it was such a message to me, how important the arts were, how vital they were to just getting us through that horrible time. So, Jackie, you have the last word.
But before she has the last word, I just want you, Jackie, to talk about Requiem, which came out of that time in which we are doing an excerpt of on the plaza here. So if you could add that into your comment,
during this shattering time, 9/11, I had started rehearsing in the studio with one dancer, I think it was Christine Orica, and I just kept hearing the Fauré's Requiem, and I kept saying, it was supposed to be about Artemisia Gentileschi's life, and I said, this piece is going to be about Artemisia Gentileschi, but I keep hearing this music, and so let's just do it with this music, and well, of course, 2 weeks later, we knew why we were doing Fauré's Requiem with 5 women. And things like that, again, as I said, speak. And we're doing Requiem this year in white. We're recreating all the skirts and everything in alchemic white to also honor so many lives that we are losing in our world, little children onward, And I always say, if we could love our earth so deeply, we could not destroy it. And the same thing with human life. It comes down to, love in a sense. I just
White is such an interesting color. In some cultures, it's a color of celebration, and in some cultures, it's a color of mourning.
Yeah, and silence. And, I think we come to this moment now where, to me, it's like the old woman in the ancient cave, and she's weaving the beautiful garment that is the universe. And we are unraveling it. And now we must pick up the threads and to build again, to weave again the most beautiful, more beautiful. We can do it one step at a time. I always say we can, make peace. And we can weave, I think, a future for, humanity, for human existence. And it's hard for me to speak as much as I want to say. So I just you'll just have to come and be with us on 9/11 and
Thank you.
bring our spirits together, in this time where and that's why I had said to Daniel about, metamorphosis, Earth is going through this metamorphosis again, 40 million years ago, the Earth went through how many times we've gone through these or over these thresholds. And again, we come to this metamorphosis, and so is humanity coming through a metamorphosis.
Beautifully said, Jackie. Beautifully said. Thank you. And thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Therese. Thank you, Daniel, for coming in tonight and giving us this insight into this really profound, important work. I can't thank you enough, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Alan, so much. And thank everyone who has helped to be a part of this project. I thank all of you dancers and collaborators and everyone who helps to make this possible.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this, what I think was a really stimulating discussion and insight into this really moving and important work. Again, please go to our website, stepsbeyond.org, for the full lineup of our future events. There's also an opportunity on the site to donate to our foundation so that we can continue to present these quality works. Thank you to all, and good night to you all.